11 kilogram in a single parcel from MSI. Wait, so this is not an entire gaming system? Seriously, MSI, what the hell is going on? Like, look at the size of this thing. Yeah, I don't know what to say. This is insane. I mean, to be fully fair, at least there is an AIO and some memory included. However, these memory sticks are not the quickest you can get. Those are some Kingston Fury 5200 C40, but at least it's something. At least it's some DDR5. Obviously, we need professionals to first check if everything that was included in delivery looks fine. These look like some metal pieces that are required for the motherboard. Okay, so chic is fine. The packaging not so much, which I don't really care that much about. But let's take out the motherboard and look at this piece. Underneath the motherboard, we can find all the accessories. Wi-Fi antenna. I'm not sure if these parts, do they also belong to the Wi-Fi antenna? Not so sure what this is. I will find out. But there's also the AIO sitting underneath. Goes up to the radiator and all the mainboard accessories. Okay, so DIY stand set. That looks interesting. It's like a bench table. I will assemble everything and check back. Are you looking for more to destroy, Chic? And with these words, welcome to this new video, because MSI called me on Thursday and they said, "Hey Roman, will you have time before Christmas to take a look at the Z690 Godlike?" And because I'm a typical person to buy a board like this, because I, for my personal rig, also purchased the Dominus Extreme, and these boards kind of are similar, I absolutely agreed, and I'm very happy to have this here in my hands. I'm not sure what happened in the MSI development department, but it certainly escalated. It's always interesting to see these socket caps, which feature LGA 1700 and LGA 1800. Because we all know that Alder Lake is using 1700 and Raptor Lake will also use 1700. But it could be that Meteor Lake then uses 1800. Very, very interesting. But it also tells us that the socket for 1800 should have the same dimensions. I just started peeling off all these annoying protective films. I noticed some of these covers seem to be attached magnetic. It's just bad if the magnet is still on there and not in the cover. Seems like I have to glue this back. Should not happen with the mainboard in this price category. Also on the I/O area, there seem to be some paint missing in this area, but I also think this is not a retail unit. You can clearly see this protective film has been peeled off before. So this has been used before. And I'm not sure if this was because somebody else tested this before me and maybe damaged some parts because he was not careful. But I don't think this will reflect the retail quality. I'm pretty sure on a retail unit you would not have this or this. I guess the main feature of the Z690 Godlike is this LCD touchscreen area right here. I'm not sure if I want to touch this, to be honest. I just spent 2 or 3 minutes to perfectly clean these shiny surfaces on the I/O area and also on the LCD touchscreen area. I think this is called M-Vision. You can also detach this and put it next to your system. We will check how this will look like, if this makes sense to use it in this regard or not. Most of the board is made out of aluminium. I absolutely approve this, like everything you can see right here, this area right here. However, this part on the bottom, because the start and reset button had to be included down there, they are made from plastic, and also this entire thing is made of plastic. But I think they did a quite good job on making sure that the materials look the same. If you just look at this from a distance, even if it's just like half a meter, you will not be able to tell if this is plastic or if this is metal or not. So they did a very good job on making sure that the surfaces look exactly the same. This DIY stand set is also kind of interesting. It has these holes on the bottom which allow to mount a fan, which can blow air towards the mainboard from the bottom. I'm not sure if this is really required. This is like 6 or 7 centimeters of space underneath the mainboard. It should certainly be enough for just convection underneath the backplate for cooling, but you could do it in theory if you wanted to. MSI, where's the tuning controller module? These features are awesome. Why is this not included? Or am I too stupid to find it? I finally also figured out how to remove this. Just take it out. It's attached with some magnets, has an additional connection on the bottom. You could connect it with a cable to a port on the bottom. I want to add some more about the materials used in this motherboard. I just checked some more of the slides I could find online, and like the review guide and all these information, it's always stating full metal armor, which is not entirely true. Like the piece on the bottom this is plastic, and also everything around the LCD screen, this right here, everything on the top right is made out of plastic, which is no problem at all. It's no problem at all, but it's just not right to claim that the entire thing is made of plastic, because this makes up, I don't know, 20% of the space of the armor of the board, and this is not metal, but everything else is. And these surfaces right here, they are tempered glass, the same material you know from your case. That is awesome. This is much more scratch resistant than the typical plastic you will have on here and here, which also leads me over to why are these plastic? Because this is the area you're always like working around with the display. These surfaces are in much more danger than these. I would have loved to also have this in glass. I started removing the bottom cover to access all of the M.2 slots, which also leads me over to one of the features MSI is heavily marketing for whatever reason. They call this magnetic connector, and I'm not sure why this is even necessary, to be fully honest. This is an M.2 shield. There is some RGB stuff behind this glass part right here. It's certainly a very nice looking piece, but this part will be screwed with 2 screws to this part right here and to this part right here. So it's mechanically fixed. I'm not sure why it's necessary to have a magnetic connector to this. This is also very common in the smartphone region, where you can have those magnetic charging cables or data cables. I'm not sure why this is a cool feature. Doesn't really make sense to me. I was almost about to rant about using these types of screws on a consumer board, but then I noticed that this screw and this screw is holding down the bottom M.2 cooler, which then makes sense to differentiate which type of screw you have to remove and which can stay in there. In total, the board features 6 M.2 slots. Absolutely insane, but also quite difficult to figure out which slot to use. Most of the slots feature some tiny tables next to it, like this one, which says M.2 6, featuring chipset Gen 3 lanes. The board has a very good block chart diagram listed inside the manual, which is awesome, but it is missing crucial information like which generation M.2 PCIe we will have or not. To find out how the slots are connected directly, you will have to pay attention to those tiny tables. And you will figure out that only this slot right here, M.2 3, is connected with PCIe Gen 5. You would maybe have the assumption that M.2 1 is using PCIe 5.0, but that's not the case. And this is also very difficult to figure out, because the table of this slot, you can see a part of it, is sitting underneath the chipset cooler. Yeah, that's something I would complain about. And regarding these magnetic connectors, I'm still not sure what to think about this, to be fully honest. I'm not sure if this is really necessary or just a pure marketing feature. I mean, there are solutions to have like PCB to PCB connections without having any kind of magnets, but maybe this is allowing the connection to be easier, to always make sure that the pins are in the correct location. Chic, stop eating the protective films. I'm not sure why she's always doing that, but she loves eating these. I have to throw them away. That's why you should remember to always use these. I just started setting up the system, and there is a feature I have to show. I just plugged the 24-pin connector while standby power was still on. Now check this out. To be fully honest with you, I'm not sure what to think of features like this. This is really on the edge for somehow still being funny, but also being very childish. And to be honest, this is not a childish product. To me, it's a very serious product, but it's serious in a very good way. I think it doesn't reflect anything like a toy, but the built-in speaker sounds like a €2 Happy Meal, whatever speaker toy thing. Not so sure. The I/O area looks exactly like what you would imagine from today's high-end board. We have plenty of USB 3.2 Type A connectors. We have 2.5G Ethernet, 10G Ethernet, 2 times USB Type C, aka Thunderbolt 4, which can be also used for multi-monitoring. That's why you have the mini DisplayPort connectors underneath. Wi-Fi, sound, BIOS flash button to use it with a USB stick, and CMOS clear. This USB connector, which is marked with M-Vision, is important if you want to use the display, the M-Vision display in an external function. I also added this metal bar on top. It's hiding the EPS connectors and some of the other cables underneath. I only placed it loose right now to show how it would look like, because it is connected with the screws you would normally use inside your case. So I cannot really fix this right now, but this is how it would look and how it would hide some of the cables. I think that's a cool thing to have. But this is very interesting.
Please check graphics card. Graphics card error. Please check graphics card. Graphics card error.
Okay.
Please check graphics card.
I have to admit, this is a very interesting feature. I didn't expect this. I didn't have... One of the connectors was not correctly plugged. I now also partially removed one of the memory DIMMs. Let's see if this is doing the same. So now it's telling me CPU error. It is true to some regard, because it could also be the CPU not sitting exactly or not having a good socket contact, and this way not making good contact with the DIMM. So I guess it's 50-50 CPU and memory error. I made good progress with my testing. The CPU is now running at 5.1 GHz. It passed XTU stress test for about almost 25 minutes so far. Memory was no issue whatsoever, 6000 C36. It straight applied, no issues at all. And the MOSFET temperature peaked out at about 75 degrees Celsius, which is also a very nice value. But you can see the CPU thermal throttled. That is something we have to talk about later. But I have to admit, this mainboard visually is an absolute masterpiece. On the top right LCD, I'm now featuring M.2 temperature, CPU core voltage and MOSFET temperature, while I display the CPU temperature on the LCD display on the AIO. Now you can see the design changed back to this because the MSI center just crashed again. We will talk about the negative aspects in a few minutes, but first of all, just some visual impressions of the board. I think it is one of the best looking boards I've ever seen. Also looking at these like tiny glass parts with subtle illumination. Looks very good. The design of the board is outstanding. The downside though is if you remove this, it definitely looks like something is missing. They should have brought like a replacement cover, just a piece of plastic maybe, but yeah, it looks like something is missing. Let's talk about this a bit more, because there are several aspects we have to talk about. First of all, we have to talk about the touchscreen itself. You can see it requires a lot of like force, because this is like one of the older generation touchscreens. You can see that in the light reflection maybe. Yeah, you can see how the display bends slightly, because it's required to use a lot of like force to push, to control the display, which is not that great. It doesn't feel as nice. It's like if you just subtly press this, nothing happens. Then let's talk about the temperature and the humidity. Humidity might be right, but the temperature, that's also very annoying. It's missing like a controlling option, because whenever I don't immediately press it, it straight goes back to the monitoring. But maybe I want to adjust some things and then it's straight always going back. But the temperature is the temperature of the device, because there's no way I have 33 degrees in my room right now, but this also feels very warm. Also, I'm not sure why whenever I open the MSI Center, the controls on the basic controls are gone. And there's only this right here, which is a countdown timer. I'm not sure why I have to have a countdown timer. It would make much more sense if it would just be a normal clock. If I go over to advanced, let's go to the controls. I'm not sure if this is doing CPU ratio or CPU B clock. We will find out. Good thing is if I enter this menu, at least it's not going back to the monitor function. Let's check what this is actually doing. Ah, okay. As you can see, it is changing the B clock. Just went to 101, 102, back down. So this is working, but I'm not sure why they chose B clock. And for all the other options right here, I am not sure what they are supposed to do, but right now they are not doing anything. Only the basic controls are working. Yeah, not sure if I'm missing anything in the software, but yeah, doesn't do anything. It may sound like I'm complaining a lot in this video, and to some regard that's also true, but I just found out online that this board is above 2,000 euro. And I think for this price you can expect perfection. Like everything has to work out perfectly. I'm looking at this product from a standpoint that I'm a potential buyer, which I am, because I mean I purchased the Dominus Extreme, which is basically the same kind of category of a board. And that's why I took everything exactly in the way that I personally purchased the board. Let's start with the MSI Center and everything regarding the M-Vision display and software. The MSI Center crashed like 3 or 4 times over, I don't know, the last 3-4 hours, which is not great because whenever the MSI Center crashed in the background, you also lose the monitor function, like the custom monitor function. I also want to point out that this custom monitor function has to be further improved. Right now you can only select what type of temperatures you want to display, or like frequencies and voltages. But you cannot decide, for example, you want to display 3 temperatures at the same time, which from my opinion would make much more sense than waiting like 30 seconds to look at all the different temperatures while it's cycling through. Especially if you select up to 16 points, which you can do, you would sit in front of the display for, I don't know, 4 or 5 minutes until you found every single piece of information. So this needs further adjustments. It would be nice if you could select yourself the cycle time, if it's cycling or not, if you want to display several temperatures at the same time. This has to be further improved. As I said before, the LCD itself should also be improved for the next generation in regard that it's using an old technology. These like pressure touchscreens are not up to date anymore. It would be so much nicer if it would be a different type of touchscreen, which is easier to touch, and maybe also a glass surface would be much nicer. It would be much more scratch resistant. And also the way you use the touchscreen, I'm not even sure if a touchscreen makes even sense on this. If you take this out and put it on your desk, then a desk stand is missing. I'm not sure how you would present this on your desk, but some kind of stand would be nice to have it organized on your desk. And if you use it externally, it's missing on the board. Like you can clearly see that something on the board is missing. So you would have to have, I don't know, like a glass shield to put on there, something to replace the LCD to make it look nice while still having this outside of the case. If you use it inside, and that's what I think MSI has to think about, for me personally, I would say it would be better to have only like a high quality LCD with like a glass front without the touch function. Simply because I cannot see people standing in front of their PC and constantly like touching inside their case. It's something you might do on the first day and then you will probably never do it again. So I think it would be better to just have full software control, have nice software control with more functionality instead of having a touchscreen. Because right now, to me, it feels like this is a 2,000 euro prototype. A lot of the functionality on the LCD is not working for me. I'm not sure why this is the case. I'm just using it the way I would use it. And you could see that some of the functions, I don't even know, like the countdown timer, they don't make sense. You could place a clock there, and then also the overclockability or the overclocking function, why is B clock there and not like CPU ratio? Or maybe both. But having B clock is something, nobody will use this. Nobody will use the B clock function. That's why I'm not sure why it's there. Looking at this from a technical standpoint, it is a great board. I didn't have the time to like unscrew everything around the socket to remove the heat pipes and everything. But we have a 20 plus something phase, 100 amp power stage design, which is more than what you would ever ask for. This is more than what you would ask for extreme overclocking even. And you could see with the temperature, the CPU is drawing 260 watts and it's still only at 75 degrees Celsius while it's used passively. So if you would mount this inside your case, if you can mount it inside your case, because it's also a massive size, which also is probably a downside. I'm not sure how many cases will support this, but that is going to be tough. But the temperature and everything, like technically the BIOS options, the overclockability, everything in this regard is perfect. Doesn't need any kind of adjustments, but they have to fix the MSI software and like the LCD related things. One more thing I want to point out is the fact that it's shipped with an AIO. That is something I cannot approve, simply because if you would pair this with your 12900K and maybe in the future with a 12900KS, if this ever makes it to the market, you could already see that my custom OC is instantly thermal throttling, like even if you run R20, for example. Because an AIO for a 12900K, like manually overclocked, is often not sufficient. That's why I think it would have been much nicer and better if MSI decided to make a custom water cooling block and maybe add just the LCD screen on top. Just have a random custom water cooling block you can loop inside your custom water cooling system and have a nice like MSI LCD screen on top. That would have been the much better option than bundling an AIO. Because for 12900K, an AIO is okay, just for gaming purposes, but if you're running this, I mean, if you're spending 2,000 euro, then you're most likely also getting maybe a binned 12900K. You probably want to manually overclock your CPU and then the AIO is simply not sufficient. But with this design, it would be nice to have also like a custom water cooling block with an LCD on there. All right, so enough complaining from my side. I hope you still enjoyed this first look on the Z690 Godlike. Very impressive board. And if I would have like an innovation award on my channel, I would definitely give this to this board. Even though there are some features missing, some adjustments to be made on the software, just innovation-wise, this is standing out from the competition right now. And that is something I absolutely love. If people are going a step further and not just copy the competition, and that is what MSI did. They went one step further. They just need to adjust some things for the future, but the direction is nice. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time. Bye-bye.